let's dig into Bucks Celtics. Another series that is tied right now. We'll just roll through the East real quick. How, Monica, how do you unlock Giannis if you're Milwaukee?
I don't think you do nothing different. And I've been saying this all day as we prepping for shows tomorrow. I think the difference in Giannis this year versus last year is that I trust him to make the adjustments. Right? Like Grant Williams played, it doesn't get better than that in terms of his defensive performance, needling, bothering, pestering, picking up charges versus Giannis. But what we've seen over the course of this season is Giannis take the next step as a decision maker, as someone who's not just going to overwhelm you with his sheer power. Mm-hmm. And so to me, I trust him to make smarter reads, to keep his elbows out the way, pass the ball to his teammates. Like game 2 to me was about the Celtics just punching first and the Bucks just didn't get up in time. Like there's nothing you could do. Crazy first quarter from Jaylen Brown, like first half rather. And so I'm not worried about Giannis. We saw especially about the fourth quarter, but in the second half of that ball game, he was getting to his spots again. It was just a little too late. So I'm not particularly worried about Giannis. Do I think Grant Williams continues to bring that level of intensity? Yeah, but you're not going to stop Giannis. You can only hope to contain.
I got you. Steve, what about you?
I don't see that happening again, especially because even in game 1, he had a level of passing and playmaking that was tough. And they could still find him and switch him on matchups that Boston doesn't necessarily like. I would just like to see Milwaukee open some things up for him a little bit. Then they tried a couple things. Empty the side, have Giannis scream for Drew. And now, hey, y'all don't want to switch that. Now Giannis might be able to roll. Or, hey, let me attack Robert Williams a few times. Let's space the floor. Let's do a couple things because, Al Horford's held up in the matchup, at least in game 2. But that's my thing with Milwaukee. It was a great night from Boston, but it kind of felt like Milwaukee's going to go, hey, you guys have to do that 3 more times.
Right.
Like that. Like you got to do that with Giannis. You got to make those shots, make those plays consistently. They never felt like they reacted in that game, and that was big to me. We talk about adjustments. I always like to see how a team reacts. And we've seen in the playoffs where teams see that something isn't working, try something else, and now you're really in trouble. So I think Milwaukee's going to stick with their guns.
I got you. Like you touched on it, the one thing that stood out to me in the second half, like they did go with more empty corner stuff. They let Grayson Allen run some stuff, more pick with Drew. I think rolling him with an empty corner, if you don't get that switch, that's a way to unlock him. Beyond that, Giannis just kind of has to play better. Like we talked about it after the game 1. He went 9 of 25 from the field, and Boston defended him pretty well, but also Giannis just missed some layups that he normally doesn't. And so I went into that like, okay, I'm pretty encouraged from Milwaukee side. They defended well. They threw Boston out of rhythm. They got a bad scoring game from Giannis with some makeable shots, and then he followed that up with an even worse game too offensively, at least as a scorer. So there's still low-hanging fruit to grab in that regard with some of the misses, but go ahead.
I do think we got to be careful because, and I'm guilty of this, same conversation around KD. He'll figure it out. Like he's KD, and overlooking the commitment of Boston on the defensive end. Now, Giannis is uniquely equipped to handle any type of little bumps, bruises, switches, and he still put up numbers that KD obviously struggled to get. But there is something to be said for him having to think a little harder in the course of what comes so naturally to him. Do I think that he can do it? Yeah, but might we see over the course of a series a far less efficient version of Giannis that still puts up numbers? That would not surprise me at all.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a good point. I got to take my L too. I was the leader of KD's going to figure it out. So I'll hold that L. I would also just like to see Milwaukee get a little bit of seasoning offensively to help him out.
What do you mean?
Gotcha. I mean, just don't do stuff like, hey, Drew Holiday, go stand at the dunker spot. Grant Williams is guarding you. Oh, Giannis is trying to attack. Oh, the help is right there. So just don't do that. Don't do stuff like that. Just little things like that. Like, if you're going to do that, then, yeah, we have a whole different conversation. So Giannis's paint pressure can change the game, but ...
So here's the next part of this, though, and y'all remember the finals last year, right? Like, Bud doesn't make adjustments. Woo, 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 right? Like, ultimately, they reign supreme. But If I had a vote, Ime Udoka was on my ballot as coach of the year. And so if you talk about seasoning, right? I don't know if it's, Ime's fresher out of the league. He's had a little bit of a different coaching tree than Bud. Those pop guys tend to like stick to their thing. But if we get into a place where this now comes down to X's and O's, I'm a big Ime fan. Like, I'm a big Ime fan.
I'm intrigued. Like, I'm with you as someone that was yelling at Bud every other episode during the postseason, where it's just like, why are you doing this thing, or why are you not doing this thing? And then we get like game 3 or 4, and it's like, wow, if you would have did this in game 1, you might be in a better spot. And even in the finals, there's a little bit of that, and then they won the whole thing. So like, there's only so much I could say, but it's still kind of there. So
I said it for you. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yes, you did. So I'm with you. Like, there are some schematic tweaks Milwaukee have. On the defensive end, how do we feel about Milwaukee kind of shifting the matchup a little bit in the second half? Because Giannis got the Jaylen Brown matchup in game 1, got it in game 2, and then the second half comes and he is not on Jaylen Brown anymore.
That's not new though, right? In terms of like, Giannis doesn't necessarily end up on the best player, right? That's not new. Is that new?
No, not new, but like, I at least heading into series, like, I was surprised. I was expecting him to get like the Horford matchups again wrong, or getting the Robert Williams matchup wrong. And so they start with Jaylen Brown. It's like, okay, that's interesting. I wonder if Boston's going to pick at the screen navigation for Giannis. Like, I wonder if that's going to be a thing. And so it was interesting to me to see Milwaukee kind of blink in that way. It's like, all right, no, we are just going to put Giannis on Derek White now. We're going to put Drew on Jaylen Brown now. We're going to keep West on Jason Tatum. We're going to mix this up so we can switch a little cleaner. Let's get Giannis in a more natural matchup.
I thought they were trying to get Giannis back in his help position, and Boston saw that and said, nope, you're not doing that. Giannis, Derek White, you go stand on that strong side corner, and Giannis, you can't help the same way. Sorry, buddy. All that stuff you did in game 1 protecting the paint, you're just going to stand and watch over there.
I actually thought that some of that too was about Giannis was kind of in foul trouble a little bit game 2. Mm-hmm. Like, I think you got to preserve him a little bit. So I mean, now that y'all are talking them through in terms of the matchups and the help, that makes total sense. But I just thought it was more about, all right, dude, like, we need you on the floor, preservation of energy, and we don't want you to pick up fouls trying to keep up with, because Jaylen was insane. Like, what?
Yeah. No, that's a good call. I was just intrigued by that one. I guess on that front, do you anticipate seeing the same matchup then heading into game 3? Do you think they keep him on Jaylen to start, or do you think that's going to be more of a learning? Because I think Marcus Smart's going to be back for game 3, and we've seen him.
Yeah. I don't know. This is where, and so 15 minutes before game 1 started, we were doing hoop streams, and I was like, ooh, do I believe that the Celtics are about to pull this off? You got to roll with the champs all year long. I do think something unique is happening with the Celtics, but this is where I feel like people were sleeping on Chris Middleton's absence. Like, not even the offensive side, but the defensive side of the ball, right? Because if Chris is on the floor, then Giannis can go guard the natural, like, what he can go 4, and you got, depending on if you got Brooke or Bobby back there, like, it's just a little bit easier because of Chris's length. Now, to be fair, in game 1, I was like, ooh, Wesley Matthews, wait, he's actually still a dog on D2. Maybe it's not as much of a big deal, but I think over the duration of a series, you're reminded where you missed Middleton.
That's fair. And to that point, Boston went after Bobby Portis a little bit more. Also, Milwaukee got a little bit more aggressive in pick and rolls against Jason Tatum. Like, we saw that a little bit after the first quarter, at least in game 1. But in game 2, like, they were blitzing a lot of those.
They did it all the time, Nekias. That's why I was high on Boston's process. They didn't make any shots. They didn't make any plays. They didn't make them pay. But 2 on the ball is a good thing. I keep saying it. Like, that's what Boston's been waiting for. Tatum's offense to create opportunities for everyone else. Now they got to make.
Oh God, that is what they've been waiting so long for. You're right. Ooh.
They've been trying. And
he's making his teammates better now.
No, the thing for Boston, everyone's going to point to the 3-point shooting, and that's fantastic. And you got to make shots. They have to continue to drive. They need to blend. They got to get paint touches. They got to get drive and kick 2 drives because Milwaukee is still selling out on any paint. No, we're not giving you layups. You have to make these threes. If they can get both, because 2 of the ball is going to be there. They can get both, it gets interesting. And they got to keep mixing up things with their spacing. Keep moving like double screens. Keep mixing the bigs that are trying to show. If it's Portis and Brook, make them make a mistake. Get Giannis on the strong side. Let Jaylen Brown operate. Like, it's his series. If he can put 2 on the ball and he can make the plays to kick out to maybe Tatum, or the drive and kick gets to Tatum. Now he's facing a scrambling defense, and now he's hitting shots as well. It gets interesting. But again, Boston has to do it consistently. And we saw it in the first half. In the second half, we kind of saw it go backwards a little bit. They got to sustain.
To that point, like Milwaukee was able to make a little bit of run in the fourth, but constant kill shots for Boston. Kind of starve off some of the runs that Milwaukee's going on.
Kill shots. Yes. Love that.
So I am excited for game 3.
That's not on brand, guys.
What do you